Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Special Finance Committee meeting for December 4th, 2025. Long before Canada or British Columbia existed, the Sianu and Sauk First Nations lived in balance with the lands and waters that sustain life in what is now Metchosin. Healthy lands supporting healthy people. This acknowledgement is one step in supporting Indigenous communities as we continue to listen, learn, and act in the spirit of truth and reconciliation. Committee, we have an agenda before us, and we have some correspondence items for that are on the agenda for number 4A. It's the staff report of the 2026-2030 draft 5-year budget financial plan. 2 letters from Ms. Strauss and 3 letters from Ms. Bacon. And we also have the budget request for an emergency livestock shelter for item 4A with a staff report. Any other additions or amendments?
I can move adoption of the agenda.
Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Shugan. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. This meeting is intended to be a space where inclusion is paramount and all individuals are treated with dignity. We strive to ensure everyone feels welcome and respected. I ask that you remain respectful as you present your comments to council, staff, and visitors in the gallery this afternoon. I would like to open up the mic for public participation. Please note that all comments made during public participation will be heard by the Finance Committee and taken into consideration. Is there anyone from the community that would like to speak? Now would be the time. Please step forward. Begin by stating your name and the street in which you live for our recording staff. You have 4 minutes to speak. The lighted timer on the table will help guide your time. Okay, seeing that no one is interested in speaking at this point, we do have a second opportunity after the committee has had a discussion for public input. So we'll move on to number 3, which is reports, and I'll ask our CFO to start with the staff report on page 3 for the 5-year financial plan addressing capital and special projects. Mr. Creek.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Through the chair, this report kind of goes back to the last meeting to provide additional information for the capital projects they've been requested for 2026, and then to provide some additional information for the costing on Weir Beach Stairs and the Duke Road East Trail projects. And then there was also an inquiry about installation of additional light at the school. It's been ordered. We're just waiting for that to come in, and then Public Works will install that. And then for the school ramp, still working with Public Works to get some greater detail on that. So I'll bring that forward in 2026 for consideration. And so, per the council motion from November 20th, below is detailed costing of the Duke Road East Trail and Weir Beach Stairs. For the Duke Road East line painting, the center line cost $1,248.50. And then the line painting related to phase 2 and 3 was $17,882.88. That was all done by third-party contractors. The Duke Road East Trail engineering engineer drawings have come to $10,920 so far. And then the Weir Beach Stairs, we have a total cost of $32,295.62, and we're still waiting on the handrails to be done with metal. Public Works indicated that they received a cheaper quote for one, so I think that one's moving forward, but I'm not too sure when it's actually going to be installed. And then finally, Schedule A through M, I think, maybe. And now N with the livestock emergency shelter. Kind of gives more detail and a breakdown of what's going on, why it's needed, where the funding is going to come through from either reserve or a grant. And then just to say that there is sufficient funding in reserves right now to pay for all these above projects. Realistically, the Neil Road culvert seems unlikely to be completed in 2026, so I don't know if it'd be half 26, half 27, or some kind of mix between. They still need to do, if approved, they would need to do engineering, design, drawings, and then take quotes, find out who's actually going to do the job, and then see if they can actually get it done. And then the costs for all these projects, they are based on just kind of current estimates. The road specifically based on the road management plan that was prepared earlier in this year. We'll hear from Island Paving and Capital City Paving about their increases sometime in January, February. Last year was about 5% increase in their asphalt costs. And then if council wanted to add any trails or widen shoulders for those roads, it would increase costs, so we'd have to either reduce the number of roads done or expand the budget, either or. And right now, staff are just seeking committee decision on which 2026 capital projects can proceed, so that tenders, quotes, proposals can be obtained early in the fiscal year. And if we get the ball rolling sooner than later, might be able to have final numbers in the financial plan for 2026 before the bylaws passed. And then we can have real figures out there, know what's coming out of reserves and know what we have left over. So I'll just leave it up to discussion now.
Through the chair, I think that roads plan is more than a year old. I think it was done in like at least a year ago. Yeah, not this year.
Thank you. Okay, so committee, I guess we could start on page 7. The Schedule A. Okay, I'm going to open it up for comments. This one is to do with the roads. And the specific ones that we are asked to look at this year for this funding is Triswell, Rocky Glen, Glen Forest, William Head, and Sundance for an estimate of $800,000. Any comments to start us? Mayor Little?
Yeah, thank you through the chair to our CFO. I know these are for repairs. Is this crack and seal and big patches where there are large potholes, or is this paving big sections? Thank you.
Through the chair, not crack sealing, but yeah, actually overlaying whatever we have now, filling in if there is a big pothole, that type of thing, but not just spraying on hot rubber to fill the crack. So overlay the old road, make sure it's good to go for another 20 years.
So full surface painting, paving. Okay. Any other comments, committee? Mayor Little, go ahead.
So as we talked about last year, for instance, Tiswold, there is that large pothole that I guess was fixed but is still degrading. So that of course deserves attention. But is the plan to recap? Is that what you called it? Capping? Is to cap the whole Tiswold Road?
Through the chair, yes. So it'd be the whole road would be done, not just the one pothole there.
Yeah, through the chair, if you look at the roads, study, it in the columns it gives the length of the road, the quality assessment, and then the ranking of when it should be replaced in the year. So, like one comment I would make is are these the question? Are these projects imminent, or they do have to be done right away? And the answer is, if we don't do the prescribed annual resurfacing it just gets delayed for another year. And that means that year's resurfacing gets delayed another year. So we're just moving the yardstick into the future. Doesn't mean they don't have to be redone. It just means that we're delaying the process and money adds up, like the costs will add up. And then the other question I think Councillor Gray had was, as a council, how does council know, what's the cost benefit of doing roads versus delaying for a year or two? My comment on that is our roads are in spectacular condition comparatively to other municipalities. So if we delay a road 1 or 2 years, it's not the end of the world, but it does mean that cost for that road will go up, let's say 5-10% for those 2 years. So there's some finances to take in consideration. Are the roads in a state of emergency disrepair? No, they're not. Do they need to be, after 30 years of use, replaced? Yes, they do. But can we go a year or two down the road, into the future to do it? Of course. It's all finance dependent. If there was ever a situation where the road is so drastic that it has to be done, we're going to make sure that that's brought to council's attention. So I know it's a long-winded answer to what I think is a valid question. And as I stated previously, there's engineers that make their living on this question. And so what we've done is we've gone out and got a visual inspection of our roads based on the funding that we have available. The next level would be doing a core sample. That's quite expensive. I don't believe we need to do core samples. Our roads are not in that kind of situation. I know that Highlands or View Royal and maybe Highlands have done some core sampling because they have some pretty bad roads. So these are all tools in our toolbox that we can utilize over the years. So if it helps, I'm hoping that it helps council make some decisions. I know $800,000 a year is a lot of money, and people are concerned that we're doing our best review possible. So if there's any questions on that, we're happy to have a good chat about it at the finance committee table. I've talked to the public works staff about delaying projects year over year. They're not they're not like panicking if we delay some roads. We've delayed Tiswall here. Tiswall is kind of in the same condition as it was last year. Does it have to get done? Yeah, it has to get done eventually. As an example, has it drastically gone downhill since last year? A little bit, but people are still driving on it. There's a point where the underbelly of the road, the base, gets compromised to a point where you have to do more patchwork before you resurface. That's something that our public works staff keep a pretty good eye on, and that's why we have a patching budget in the operating budget. So that would be more emergent kind of spending, and I think that's a very good tool. Maybe potentially that if council doesn't want to spend the 800 capital, we put a little bit more in the patching budget so we can kind of address things like that pothole in Tidswald or whatever quickly. Might be an avenue for now if we're considering our other capital projects. Yeah. So. Mm-hmm.
Councillor Gray?
Just through the chair, I want to say thanks to CAO and CFO. That's a pretty good explanation. Basically, if we don't do it this year, we get a bigger and bigger deficit in our roads, and so the cost will come to us at some point. So may as well get on it in accordance with the engineer's reports. So when I look at the document, then, am I right when I'm looking at the Schedule A from the road assessment, I guess? And so, kind of to the question the mayor was asking, we've got the site inspection recommendation there, and that's likely what's going to happen, either rehabilitation or reconstruct the road, depending on the advice. and followed by our own Public Works people taking a look. Great. And so then I just had just a minor question, really. We've got Rocky Glen Road, Tiswald Road, Glen Forest Way. Glen Forest Way is listed a couple of times. So is it, can we just get it clear which ones we're looking at? And then Sundance isn't on the list. So I wondered if it was, if our Public Works guys found that one as being in deficit. Yeah. Yeah.
Sundance has been on the list for a while. I don't know why. Actually, I saw that today as well. I'm not sure why it's not there.
Yeah, that's okay though. That's part of what you think needs to be done. Yeah. So I guess I was just interested in clarifying which parts of the road, but maybe others have questions as well.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Donaldson. In some ways, I'm looking for a reason to not go with this, and I'm actually not really seeing one. I get Mayor Little's thoughts about, I'm wanting to at heart minimize our expenditures, but whether avoiding work on this is the question. I'm not sure. The one thing that I might request that we look toward, and I'm not sure how to enact this, but that the standard that we work to with chosen roads is pretty good roads. Not awesome roads, not crappy roads, but pretty good roads. And hopefully we're kind of achieving it with that. And it was interesting, we had an interesting discussion a few meetings ago about the potential of graveling our roads or letting them, fall away. And maybe that is a sign of like a rural community where you have bad roads or gravel roads. I'm not advocating that, but again, as we move along, the whole concept of pretty good roads is probably the measure that I hope we might take. So anyways, as of now, I guess I'm prepared to support this. And yeah, thank you for the explanation, Mr. Pratt.
So I do have one question for two different roads. One is William Head Road is in the schedule 3 different times, and presumably because it's a very long road, so there would be sections, and it does give the length there. So I'm not sure which section this is. And the same for Glen Forest. I do know that the lower part of Glen Forest is in very good condition, other than maybe some edges. So maybe it's the upper. So I don't know if you could clarify if it's the whole Glen Forest, or if it's just from Sundance down to say High Mount, or what section. So that would kind of help decipher what it is actually we're looking at for sections. And I do know that Tiswald gets moderate traffic flow, but it's the edges that are starting to crumble away as you go through some of their turns and stuff for sure. So it's just going to continue. There's no support left there with the big trucks that go through for recycle, etc. Hence one of the potholes. Any other questions, Mayor Little?
Yeah, thank you. As the CAO says, we really do have spectacular roads, and I'm in favor of having good roads. And I think in an economy where we were flush with money, it'd be great to have spectacular roads, but we've got so many other priorities in the overall budget and the overall five-year financial plan. And I like the idea of putting more money into the operational budget to cover for not spending the 800,000. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Mr. Creek.
Through the chair, so I can speak to the Glen Forest Way project. The way Public Works described it was they would like to just do the whole thing right now, rather than having to pay for them to mobilize, come in, do 1/3 of a kilometer, come back 2 years later again. Like when you're paving that road, it's not just you're damaging things when you go back to have to repave and cut out. So they just say do the whole thing rather than do it a little bit here and then 2 years they come back. Just cost savings and less coming around to each different spot. So rather than doing 1/3 of a kilometer here, 1/3 of a kilometer there, like all the way around the chosen, just focus on, okay, we've got this one, that one, and that one. They come in, do that section, done. You don't have to think about it again for 25 years. Move on to the rest, because Wauchosen has a significant amount of roads to do.
So that could explain why William Hen, which is much, much longer, in schedule 3 different times. It makes more sense to, more economical as well to invest.
Third chair, yeah, correct. Sounds like based on Public Works, they say that part closer to the prison is in much worse condition than the upper part. So focus on that, get rid of it, and then don't have to worry about it again for a couple decades.
Any other comments? CAO?
Yeah, thanks through the chair. This might not be the best time to comment, but it's sort of mostly related to the roads. The further we go down the road of January, February, March for capital decisions, the harder it is for us to get the tenders out in a timely manner. Last year we were really late in the game, and we basically barely made the time frame to get the tenders out, so that we would get quality quotes. So I'm just saying, let's have good discussion like in December, but the sooner we get decisions done in the new year, the sooner we can get going on the tender package, particularly roads, because as you know, the tender package is complicated. We have our engineering consultant helping us to make sure that our wording is appropriate for the process. It takes a bit of time, and also we're going to refer it to committee for potential trails and whatnot. That's going to take time as well, and so we want all that public input. So that's just my comment. Okay.
So do we want to make decision each page, or do we want to have this discussion and then make a full decision? There's a lot of different topics here, so perhaps we should go through all of them. What does the committee wish to do?
What does the finance chair recommend? What we've heard from the CAO is that he wants some decisions today. What is the most effective way of getting at those decisions?
Well, is anybody in disagreement with what we've heard tonight? I think that it's pretty clear that there's a necessity for this selection of roads. I haven't heard anything otherwise. Councillor Shukin and then Councillor Gray.
I'm sensing it might be good to make a decision on each one of these, just so we're clear.
Okay.
So, and staff have clarity.
So do we want to do that by motion then? Yes? Somebody like to make a motion to accept this particular page? Page 7?
Sure, I can do that. I will move that the committee recommend proceeding with the road repaving budget per Schedule A.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Gray?
Yeah.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Oh, you're opposed. Oh, sorry. Okay. Mayor Little is opposed. Okay, so page 11. This is to do with the Neil Road culvert. And it is the cost of the asset is estimated $400,000. Propose that we consider the 3 1,200 millimeter diameter culverts to be replaced. We did hear a report out on this at the last budget meeting, and that these culverts actually have been failing for some time, and I believe this road will be up for repaving at some point. So to do the work before we repave is always better than after having to cut through it. And we have funding that's coming out of the road capital budget 100%. Very little.
Yeah, I'm okay to move that we accept Schedule B and adopt those recommendations.
Can you have a seconder, please? Second from Councillor Shukin. Mayor Little, comments?
Yeah, I think this is one of those, we've had a report that says these are failing, there's liability. What I've heard from the CFO is that this is something we must do, and I think we should just do it. Thank you.
Councillor Shukin.
Yeah, I agree with what Mayor Little is saying. The one thing I just want to ask for again is that where we can, we look to what the impacts of the Centre Mountain development might be on drainage from that area. They may end up being quite significant. So
I would agree.
the in terms of the planning and design for the culverts, that we look at what the impact might be from the Centre Mountain development in terms of stormwater. And again, I'm not really clear on the path of the creek to this area in relation to the Centre Mountain area, but it is something I think we need to keep in mind. So,
Well, there is that, and a lot of the water will probably come from the industrial park. And so the significant change probably in the last year is because there's very few trees left, and there will be more construction as the industrial park is developed as well. Mayor Little.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Shukin, so are you suggesting that perhaps we may need bigger culverts there if there is an increase, and would the engineers give us some guidance on that, looking into the future at the potential downstream effects of those developments?
I think that's a very likely possibility, and I think it goes to the question of what is the stream that's being culverted? What's its source? What are the drainage? What do you want to call them? The drainage pathways that feed the creek. So again, a close look at that might give an indication of whether there's the potential for influence from the new impervious surface that's going on Centre Mountain. Sorry, and this may end up being more of a complicated question than I'm giving thought to, but I think it's a significant one to get into. And again, for Lower Machosen, I'm betting that the development on Centre Mountain is the most significant change in terms of drainage that this area is probably ever going to see. So, yeah.
Just for clarification, CAOPET, we did have an engineer look at that area, correct? As to what we have right now for culverts, which are aged, to put in something more substantial, I don't know if it's bigger or whatever, but to withstand large flows of water.
Councillor Gray, do you want to ask your questions, and I can summarize at the end?
That'd be great, thanks. Yeah, I think I remember from the last meeting, the CFO was explaining the engineers looking at it, and we'll get a price at some point. I just had the notion of in our documents, we might, rather than put estimate, call this one a placeholder too, because I think we're not clear yet about the cost. But we will get that work done, and then I recall it'll come back in terms of getting that information. I've had a different question, and I take the point the engineer will need to look at all the water flows and the changes in water flows. But I'm looking at the correspondence from Bev Bacon, and she's raising the issue of fish in that stream and whether or not, what type of culvert we would have. I remember over in Beckingham, the qualified environmental professional provided advice on the culvert in terms of its shape and its size to suit the habitat and to fit with the riparian regulations. I don't know if the same thing applies here and whether we should engage an environmental professional, but that might be a good idea as part of this package of coming together with the best engineered solution. Does that make sense through the chair to CO?
I just want to add, CAOPET, that the Wilson Watershed Group have gone up through this creek system as well and have cited that there are some fries up there. They also worked with Langford's people, their engineers, with the Latoria Creek and concerns were what type of culverting and mediation they could do along the embankment, which is still being constructed to, because there's a fish-bearing stream there up near where the school is. So they would be very resourceful, I think, for us to consult with as well. They've given us some reports on that. So.
Shall I respond now? Oh. Okay, so I've got all the list. Currently we're in the process of doing an options review and specification report from engineer, not our engineer, but a structural engineer appropriately. And so so we will include sort of the flow analysis from where the water is coming from, the fish habitat for sure, the type of culvert is in the options analysis, and equip, and then maybe the Bilston Creek group, we can maybe do both at the same time as far as getting input. And what I would recommend, because this is a fairly significant project, both funding and environmentally and community, we can bring the engineering specifications report to one of the committees, whichever you prefer, and have a good chat about it, and people can kind of give their thoughts. There's time to do that process. I think it would be valuable for the community to see the amount of care that we take in the development of the the culvert replacement. And just keep in mind that there's only one access to a number of houses up top of Mill Road, and we're not saying it's an emergency, but if the road did fail, we would have some concerns on our hands. so and even the work on the road is going to take care, because we'll have to keep a lane open. So we're very concerned, we're very aware of that situation. So the crew are keeping an eye on the location as far as deterioration of the road and the slumping of the road. But I do believe we have time to go through the public consultation on this one. And once I get that kind of report from the engineers, I recommend we'll bring that back for review. Okay.
Great, thank you. Okay. Councillor Gray and then Mayor Little.
And I'm just wondering, through the chair, the Bilston Watershed are a great group, but the professional may be the better way to go, like a qualified environmental professional. Then the Bilston group could look at that, as opposed to them being an arbiter. So I'm not sure they've got the background. Thanks.
Mayor Little.
So thank you for that information. So regardless of what options we have, the types of culverts, who we consult with, I think the motion on the table advances this, so that it shows that the Finance Committee is interested in moving forward with the culvert replacement.
Correct. So did we have a motion already? And we had a seconder? Okay, and called question? All in favor? Passes, thank you. Okay, on to the EOC roof. So Schedule C on page 12. We also heard a report on this at the last meeting. This is an estimate of $40,000 for this roof. And some funding sources that we have recommended here are 50% from the fire department equipment and 50% from the building replacement funding streams. Any comments? Councillor Gray.
Yeah, I think at the last meeting I asked, and I think we heard back that it's okay to leave this one until we decide what we're doing at the fire hall, which would be next year. So I think it's probably best to put this one aside until then, as the roof is not in peril.
Okay, any other comments? Councillor Shukin.
Apologies, I may have been dozing at that time, but is that an accurate assessment? Okay, I'm glad. Good to believe it too.
Okay, so move on to the next one. Schedule D, fire hall placeholder. This is a cost of a $1.25 million. And the funding resource here is from the Growing Community Fund, 100%. So 100% of this cost, correct? 1.2. Any comments, Councillor Gray?
Yeah, I recall this was in our budget last year as well, and it seems to me that it's just a good move. I know a number of people in the community have reacted saying, my gosh, what's happening? And what's happening is the process that we're going through around the new fire hall. So this just provides the financing in the event that we make some decisions to spend this year, and that's how I take it, and that's why I'm okay with this.
Councillor Schuppen?
I can make a motion
Sure.
to, I would move that the committee support the allocation of $1.25 million per Schedule D as outlined in the report.
Thank you. And a seconder, please. Seconded by Mayor Little. Any further comments? Seeing none, go ahead, Councillor Gray.
Well, I'll just note that what the money is, what we're talking about spending the money on would be the beginning of the project, asking for funding to hire a project manager and perform analysis of options and designs for refurbishment or rebuild of the fire hall. So that's what we're talking about. It's not like the building's going to get built this year. It's the background to that, and I guess there may be a call for some financing at different points, or funding rather.
Right, and that is stated here under the justification for the expenditures. Thank you for highlighting that. Call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Schedule E, fire equipment, and this is a cost of the asset is $50,000. And the justification is that the tech replacement gear is for miscellaneous equipment that goes through its life. Gear extractor, which we heard at the last meeting, the fire chief was able to explain the difference between an extractor and extrication tools. These are pieces of equipment that do get a lot of wear and tear when they go to an emergency scene, and so we're looking to upgrade and or replace. In this case, it's replacement gear. And the resource for the funding is general reserve for 100%. Any comments? Anybody like to make a motion to accept this, Mayor Little?
Yeah, make a motion to accept Schedule E.
Okay, and a seconder, Councillor Schuppen. Any further comments, Mayor Little?
I think this is another one of those, if you have a fire department, you have to keep it well equipped and provide the necessary resources for the firefighters. So, thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Gray.
I had a question which need not be answered today, but I was looking back in our operating budget, and we're talking about increasing that budget by $16,000 a year for repairs and maintenance. And I wondered, and then these are smaller amounts, well, a couple are smaller and one larger, just how they fit together in terms of what all are we spending money on. So I got these ones, and then so it's referring back, but maybe we'll pick that up under the operating budget if that's a better time to ask about that.
Mr. Gray, can you help us with this one?
Through the chair, I believe that 16,000 additional for the repairs and maintenance was going to be related to the building itself. Just getting that kind of up to snuff to make it a little healthier, a little safer for the staff and volunteers while they're in there, while the decision is still being made and figured out for the new hall, refurbished hall, versus just the equipment here.
Thanks, that's helpful. It's because, maybe it's not this one, but the next one, the scuba bottle or SCBA bottles, we replace them every year, and I was just curious, these are in capital all the time, but it's a small amount, and whether it better fit in operating. But I think this topic, Schedule E, these are replacements of tools, the two big ones, the $15,000 and the $30,000 are replacing things that I guess will be recycled or move along, not useful any longer. One's an extraction tool. That's for removing people in the car. The other is it reads decontaminating gear. So it's maybe washing machines or something like that.
Through chair. Actually, yeah, so it is the gear the gear extractor is essentially a washing machine for gear. It's just a weird name for it. Like I thought, yeah, you're extracting something. You're extracting contamination from the gear.
Well, I think that's great to get, we didn't have one. Getting one sounds like a great idea. It was one of the big issues, I think, for our firefighters and for us as a council.
Yeah, and the extrication is the jaws of life, also known as the jaws of life. So yes, very useful piece of equipment that keep us moving in the right direction for health and safety of everybody. Okay, so we had a motion, we had a seconder, correct? All in favor? Carried, thank you. Schedule F. Schedule F is the SCBA bottles, self-contained breathing apparatus bottles, and the cost of this asset is $5,000. And these are the bottles that they use for air packs when they're going into burning situations, smoky-filled areas. Okay, and this will come out of the fire equipment reserve, 50% out of that reserve, as well as the general reserve, 50%. Councillor Shukin.
Councillor Donaldson, I would move that the committee approve or recommend spending $5,000 for the SCBA apparatus or the bottles for Schedule F.
And motion by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Mayor Little. Questions? Councillor Ray?
I had a question which we may not know the answer to. We replace the bottles, it seems, every year, but I gather these bottles can also be refilled and reused. Do we not refill and reuse some bottles, or do we just replace them annually?
Through the chair. Good question. I do not know if they can be refilled. As I said, it does show up every year, and this is just kind of basically a holdover from the previous budgets where it just kept popping into capital. When I was working on the new general ledger conversion, I was like, I need to move this out of here, and I highlighted the accounts. It's like I got to get rid of this plus the hose because it's really just more of an operational thing than a new capital. So this will be the last year you see this pop in here. This will just move over to the operation budget, but I can find out for the refill.
Thanks,
Yeah.
that makes sense to me, and
I think
and
that
also just finding out if we refill or what the charge is for.
great. Mayor Little and then Councillor Shukin.
Yeah, I thought that the bottles had to be refilled and then certified. I don't think it's like you can go to the corner store and fill them up and bring them back. I think they have to be properly certified since they are a health and welfare item for the firefighters.
And Councillor Shukin.
Through you, to a question to Mr. Creek. So we'll move the expense into operations next year, but it's going to be about the same expense.
Through the chair. Correct. Maybe a little bit of inflation finally kicks in on it, but yeah, just over 5,000. Predict.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried, thank you. Schedule G is fire truck number 6. Cost of this asset is $250,000. And the current engine number 6 is 16 years old, and obtaining replacement parts is becoming an issue as they no longer are manufactured. Benefit to a new truck allows for greater fuel efficiency, easily accessible replacement parts, and reduced R&M. Lack of funding. The increased downtime while parts are being found for the truck, lower fuel efficiency. The funding resource that's suggested here is a statutory reserve fire equipment 100%. Comments? Okay, well, I'll start. So it was explained to us at the last meeting by the chief that this truck is having some issues with operating, and that there is another department that may be interested in taking this truck, which does beg the question if they're taking something that we can't get parts for, or maybe they can. And so if they can, then why would we not keep a 16-year-old truck? Because our trucks will tire out at a later date So that would be one of my questions. I'd like a little bit more clarity on that, what are we actually going to do with this truck? Are we giving it to another, selling it, or how are we going to dispose of it? And if we're disposing of it and it's not useful to us, but it's useful to somebody else, how do we justify that to the people who are actually paying for this? Councillor Shukin, you have a comment?
Yeah, just what more of a question as well. So the 250,000 that we're being asked to allocate, is that for a deposit, or is that to be put into a reserve, or is that to outright have available to buy a new apparatus?
Through the chair. So that is for a deposit, essentially. Once one comes up, that's just kind of sitting on the lot. It's not going to be manufactured specifically for us. Just to have something there, so when it appears, she can say, "Hey, I got some money for it. I want to lock that in, and then we'll give you the other half in the following year."
Councillor Shukin?
So the amount would sit in a reserve until we're ready to pounce, or we're gonna? Okay, great.
Councillor Gray?
Well, I am like you, Councillor Johnson. I'm just concerned about the expenditure, the size of the expenditure, and the rationale. And I don't know if is this truck giving us a regular problem, or is it just that we need to do some repairs from time to time? One would expect some form of repairs on a 2016 vehicle, but I'm puzzled with the request.
Any other comments? Okay, so Mayor Little.
No, the only problem with delaying is that the costs increase. And that's something, if we're willing to accept that, then we could delay. It seems to be a bit of a problem if something breaks down and they can't get replacement parts. That's a big issue, because then that truck is not valuable to the community if it's just sitting idle. So maybe we could park this one item and get some more information on the questions that you had, because my concern is that if we delay, it's just going to be more money if inevitably we're going to replace it.
Yeah, as I guess to the other query that I had was, at the last meeting was the first time I heard about this truck having a problem, and that's why I had asked, was it what we know as Pepper? And I'm sorry, I don't remember the number of that truck. It's a much bigger truck, and it has been having problems. So I thought that that's what it was, so that would make sense. But this is the first that I've heard we have a problem with this truck, so that's why I was a little alarmed that maybe we've got more trucks in the fleet that are having issues, but we needed reports on. Councillor Gray?
I can just think of what's not clear, and I don't know if we know today, but is it the truck itself, or is it the firefighting equipment on the truck? Like what's the part that's needing replacements? So where's the problem? And then maybe a sense of the last 5 years, what maintenance and repairs has happened and the time that it's been off the road, or are these quick small things, or what's actually going on? Just to get a better feel for it. It's a big expenditure. We've got lots going on. This one sounds like is one that can be, we don't need to decide today, but we would like to decide soon so that the money's available if needed.
Okay, so are we all in agreement with parking this one and waiting for more information? Yes, okay, thank you. We'll move to Schedule H, fire truck hose. Cost is $12,000, and hoses do at some point come to the end of the life, so this is just recirculating, bringing in new and out with the old, so it's turning over our hoses. And this is suggested coming out of the fire department equipment reserve, 50%, and 50% out of the general reserve. comments? Councillor Shuka.
Just like to thank Mr. Creed for the powerful, the description here. Hose for powerful dispersion of water. Thank you. And with that, I would like to move
Very powerful.
that we, the committee accept the, approve the allocation of $12,000 for the fire hoses for Schedule H.
Thank you. And a seconder, please. Second by Mayor Little. Any further comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Schedule I, trail development. And this is to build new trails in Machosen. Cost here is $10,000 for this asset. The same amount that has been allocated since 2011, with some amount being allocated since 2000. The benefit, of course, is trails for the public to enjoy, and the consequence, increased chance that the public hike through sensitive areas. And this supports our public recreation. Trail maintenance from Public Works is ongoing through the Public Works and the volunteers, I believe, correct? This isn't just roadside trails, right? And there's a trail reserve of 100% funding coming out of that. Any comments? Okay, ask for motion to approve. Mayor Little and, and seconded by Councilor Shuken. Comments? Councilor Gray.
Yeah, my question, I'm not sure. I mean, I need to go back to looking at the draft master plan for parks and trails, but I'm not clear that we need new trails at this point. We've got lots of trails, and I'm thinking about the load on our volunteers and the load on Public Works at the moment. So I'm just want to ask the question. I think the 10,000 has been in the budget allocated, but I think I heard at a previous meeting that it's not always used. It depends on what's going on, and then a proposal comes forward. If I'm describing that correctly, so is this a special project, or is this just having money available in the event that something comes forward? And again, I'm just concerned about our volunteer base and our Public Works staff. Every time we build a trail, more work. And we have a big trail presumably coming, or I guess we're going to talk about it maybe even on Monday, about the buffer land and whether or not we need a trail in there and what that will cost. So there is already kind of a trail coming possibly. And we have a commitment, I think, from the developer to put that trail in, to develop at Center Mountain. So maybe one trail is enough for this next year.
Councilor Shuken, can you explain the capital $10,000 annual budget for this, please?
Yeah, so most of the work that has been done over the past few years has been focused on maintenance. There, of course, has been the discussion about the trail on Duke Road East. My vision for this is that that is not going to be for Duke Road East. It is going to be for other trails. One of the things, and again, there was mention of the buffer land. We've talked about an allocation for the buffer land, but we've also identified an issue in terms of understanding the hydrological impacts from Center Mountain development, and then also moving ahead in terms of managing that area as a natural space. And I think this is an amount that could be used for that. I don't recall any enduring and clear commitment from the developers in terms of building new trails. It is going to be our thing. And I think if there was such a commitment out there, it has to be, scrutinized for sure, because the developer is going to build trails. They're going to build it. Presumably they would build it to suit their needs. So I think this is a really small amount, and we have a very big need, especially in the buffer land and possibly other things that come along. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, this is historically, we've always had 10,000 capital, 10,000 operating. This isn't for any particular trail. And often it is not used, but it is to the Parks and Trails Committee, something that they would be, I think they'd be very disappointed if this wasn't in their budget, as has been for at least the last decade. And also, I don't remember any commitment from the developers to do any trails. They may wish to, but that would also invite the people from the Center Mountain development to use those trails. And I don't think that's what the conversations we've had so far regarding conservation. Not is I don't think it's supposed to be a park for walking. I thought we were talking more about a conservation area with limited opportunity for trail.
Thank you. Councilor Gray.
Sure, I'll just clarify that we have a letter from, I thought it was a developer, to put in a trail there, and it's signed, and I've provided it to Councilor Shukin, Mayor Little. You've seen it. I've provided it to Mr. Payette. I'll bring it to the next meeting. And so the idea was that part of the, I guess it was part of the land swap agreement, we got that commitment. It's now dated in the sense of many years have passed, but I believe the same people are in play and that the commitment exists. And Mr. Pyatt, I don't know if you did anything with that particularly. I think we just, made sure that you had it in your records. But my point being that there's a commitment to do something there if we want it done. And then therefore we would need to spend our own money, and that was the benefit of it. Not to say that it was a trail, the developer would decide where it goes. I think the letter is clear. We decide the standard, the developer would put it in. And I'll get that to all of council, and perhaps we can put it in the next agenda package for the finance committee so everybody can see it again.
Okay. So we had a motion.
Okay.
Councilor Gray.
Can I just get clarification? So in the budget, I don't want to short the PTask myself. And so in the budget, we've got, at our last meeting, we had $10,000 for capital projects, and that $10,000 was for trail development. Then there was another section called special projects, and that was $10,000 for PTask for trail development. So 10 and 10 makes $20,000. So today we're looking at a $10,000 allocation. I presume the 10,000 proceeds, the one that they usually get, and is this the special $10,000? I'm just looking at the materials we received at the last meeting.
Is this a question for Councilor Shukin or
For
CFO?
maybe for I think Mr. Creek knows what's happening.
Through the chair. So this 10,000 is for their capital budget itself. The other 10,000 is just sitting in their operating budget, which still needs council approval, but it's not broken out as the separate one. So it's only 20 combined, but you really only show this 10,000 as a separate line item just because it's in the capital section. The 10,000 sitting over there in the operating budget is more for maintenance of one rather than building a brand new one.
So PTAS will get, if we approve the operating budget, they'll have their usual $10,000, and then this is for a special new trail if a new trail gets developed.
Through here, correct. Yeah, if it gets developed, because again, it wasn't used this year, and probably in those last 15 years, maybe half those years they actually used it. So just kind of sitting there.
As an example, and I think Mayor Little, you were involved in PTask at the time, but there was an interior trail in Elmerman on the upper ridge that was put in as a that wouldn't have cost very much, but that would be where some funds would have gone to something like that. So there's small projects. The one for Beckingham, I suspect, came out of that subdivision, correct?
The Beckingham one should be paid for by the developers. Yeah.
That's what I meant. Thank you. Okay. Yes.
I was just hoping Mr. Creek could, for council, explain the carryover funding from 2025 for Parks and Trails, like if they're going to do mapping for the master plan, just to remind committee.
So through the chair, that master plan was budgeted in 2025 to be $20,000. Right now, I just signed off on an invoice today for $100 on there. I think we're still under 1,000 total that's been spent in 2025. So that whatever's left over, unless Parks Trails has another meeting, we'll just roll that into next year to be used, and then hopefully finish off the plan for the district. But it'll still be there because we've already allocated it.
Thank you for the update on that. I appreciate that. Okay, so back to this one. So we have a motion to. Okay, so I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Opposed by Councillor Gray. Move on to Schedule J. This is the school capital costs. Description is there are assorted expenditures that arise during the year. And in this particular case, it's noted that $20,000 for septic tank replacement and $10,000 miscellaneous capital. So the $20,000 set aside for septic tank replacement in 2029, which will be at the end of its current life, and $10,000 for assorted capital expenditures that arise during the year. This is just the justification. So if we look at the benefit to the district and consequences of not funding the benefit, the district will have specific savings set aside for septic replacement. Various issues arise at the school due to the age of the building. Being able to fix when the issues arise keeps users safe. Lack of funding, replacing the septic tank would use funds from other reserves if not set aside now. So we have, it's suggested here to fund this through the school building reserve with 100% funding for this total of $30,000. Councillor Gray.
I move that we approve Schedule J,
Okay,
the
and
school capital cost proposal.
thank you, and a seconder. Second by Councillor Shukin. Any further comments? Mayor Little?
Through the chair, I was just wondering, CFO Creek, do we think that in 2029, the septic tank will cost about $80,000? And are we putting enough towards that?
Through the chair. So when we got the quote last year about it, they were estimating it would be $100,000 come 2029. So we are allocating $20,000 in 2025. So we'll have 5 years, 100,000. We can take a look in 2027, see where they're going at with prices for the size of septic tank we need, and then we'll update that. Hopefully, we need another 5, worst case.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, so we have a motion and a seconder. Any other comments? Seeing none, I call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Schedule K. This is the name of the asset here is the hearing loop. The description of the hearing loop for council chambers designed for medium spaces extends hearing support across a single channel for those with T-coil enabled hearing devices for cochlear implants. Improves hearing for individuals wearing hearing devices at our council meetings and committee meetings. And also improves quality of engagement and meeting experiences for those participating during our meetings. And the source of the funding would be the General Capital Reserve or grant funds. Additional information, goal 5.1 of the District of Metchosin Accessibility Plan is to, quote, consider installing a hearing loop system in the council chambers, unquote. Any comments? Councillor Gray.
Yeah, I like this idea. I'm not totally sure about how many people have this specific ability with their hearing aids, but I'm concerned that people with regular, normal hearing can't hear us in this room. And so I'd like us to tackle that as a priority so that when people come, they're able to hear what we're talking about in the room. And then presumably that would help also people with hearing aids and then see where we sit. So I'd like to suggest that we tackle this one with grant funds if we get grant funds, but not so much from operating or the capital reserve. And then we get some, I'm not sure what the resolution is here, if it's speakers or more speakers or differently positioned speakers, but I've heard from lots of people in the audience, it's very difficult to hear in here. So my proposal would be to go with the loop hearing if we get a grant, but otherwise get a look at and see what it takes to have the room function better for everybody.
Yeah, I would support that as well. I just actually sent a grant notice to Mr. Creek yesterday, I believe it was, because it was Disability Day. And it's up to $40,000 for the Rick Hansen's organization. We also have the Spark grant, that's another $25,000, and there are a few other accessibility projects that we could be looking at, specifically the school with the lighting and the ramp, or an enhanced ramp. This was one of the things that we all talked about at our strategic priorities meeting last year, I believe, where we would keep accessibility in the forefront. So there's the two grants right there to start with some things. Lighting would be another one that would be helpful, but that's more infrastructure. I had been thinking about the same thing as what Councillor Gray was saying, and I think maybe, well, we have somebody with more expertise than I at the school. I think it's Shallow Music that does things like acoustics and speakers, and probably did help us a little with this. Plus, we've had technology or technicians come in, but as you'll see, where the pot lights are at the back, recessed speakers there might be an option, but I don't know how it works with these sorts of things. So maybe we could ask the fellow from Shallow or somewhere else, because we are getting feedback consistently on not being heard in the chambers, and oftentimes people will stay at home because they can hear better on the live stream, which bodes well to say that's why the chambers are pretty empty tonight. Okay, so shall we park this one then, or suggest that it goes to grants?
Well, what about a motion that we request staff seek grants for a hearing loop system and also investigate improving the audio, the acoustics in council chamber?
Second that.
And second by Councillor Gray. Any further comments? Mayor Little?
So do we already have a grant that would address the hearing loop? There isn't there Spark grant?
Spark grant is $25,000, and we do have a couple different projects, and this is one of them that could be applied for, sure.
So have we got other projects that are beeline for that funding, or?
No, we've only just talked casually about enhancing the school with a better ramp, or hopefully our staff can, because there's certain standards you have to have for the grade and the width of ramps for mobility. That was just one. I'm sure there's other things, but that was something else that came up recently. So again, there's two grants right there. So, $65,000 total. Not to say that we would get the full amount, but options to be able to apply for sure.
But if we've got $25,000 sitting there, and this has been a priority for a couple of years, why don't we just do it?
I think that's what Councillor Chukin was suggesting. We apply for grants.
Oh,
right.
I'm saying, do we not already have the grant in hand?
No.
So we have no grant money right now.
No, that was spent last year, but there's a new one coming up. Yeah. The two of them, the Spark grant and the Rick Hansen grant. Yeah. Just have to apply for them. Okay. So we have a motion. We have a seconder. Councillor Gray. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay. Schedule L. It says roadside trail barriers. And so the description here is the trail barriers to prevent vehicle parking on roadside trails and culverts along Happy Valley Road. And I'd just like to add William Head Road, the top of William Head Road from the community hall down to Perry Road, or maybe not even that far, but the first section there where the roadside trail is not delineated with bushes, trees, or or ditching, and it's where people are parking considerably. We've heard a lot of feedback from residents on both these trails where it becomes unsafe for foot traffic. So this would, again, support safe passage, reduces risk of accidents between trail users and vehicles. We've probably all seen these barriers a lot in the urban areas when it's delineating with different pathways that they have, cycling paths, that sort of stuff. Theirs are usually a lot longer than what I think we would suggest here. We probably wouldn't need very many, but that's why the estimate is much smaller than what we would see in the urban areas. This is $7,875, and would be coming out of the funding source of trail replacement. It was mentioned, I believe, in one of the correspondence letters that perhaps this comes out of the Public Works budget somewhere, and I had actually been pondering that myself, because Public Works, in their budget, they do take care of things like delineators, salting, sanding, reflections, signage, and that sort of stuff. So I'm not sure if that's instead of out of trails, that maybe it comes out of something to do with Public Works. Councillor Shukin, and then maybe Mr. Creek. Okay, Mr. Creek.
Through the chair. Yeah, we could take it out of Public Works. Like the funding doesn't really matter per se. It's like more of a, if you want the project done, we can certainly fund it through Public Works. I'll have to check how much of a surplus we've got in road maintenance or roadside trails. They generally have a decent amount sitting in roadside trails, but I know they do, like a surplus in their operating budget. I know they do want to do a number of projects because it has been kind of pushed to the side, but I'm sure we can make it work for 1 year. It's no problem.
And Councillor Shukin.
So two things. If it's easy, I have no qualms about taking out of Trails capital replacement. I think as I'm looking at my little sheet here, I think we have $108,000 in that reserve, but one way or the other, it's all good. The question I have is whether $7,800 is enough. And I would almost like to bump that budget up to 12 or 15,000 with only a focus on those two sites, though, Happy Valley and Rocky Point. Better to allocate up to 15,000 or 12,000 or something than start off and then we don't have enough money. But
Mr. Creek, with the barriers, there's also delineators that come with those. Some of them are quite tall and some of them are maybe only 15 inches. Was that included in the price?
Through the chair, ooh, couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I don't know how big the delineator would have been, but I'm happy to say if you want to approve 12,000 a night, we'll go get a quote for that, and then we can come back if it's over 12 for both locations, and just get your feedback on that.
Councillor Shukin.
I mean, that sounds good. I have to say though, what we put there should really be conducive to, the nature of the village core in terms of appearance and functionality for sure, but appearance as well. And then every time I hear the word delineator, I think of a bright red plastic pole. So I don't know that. So in my mind's eye, what I have thinking there is just sort of a nondescript, almost cement barrier that does the job, just doesn't make a big show of itself and whatnot. But so I might ask before I would support the 12,000, but I think we should be really clear on what it is we're putting there. Mm-hmm. So
are you referring to the brochure that I had circulated several months ago that we got from Colwood? No, okay. So they are the low barriers, enough space underneath for water and snow and whatnot to go through. The concern about not having and I've only just learned this because of some cycling accidents, where they didn't have the delineator, or they had just, the ends can either be angled or straight up, and have caused some serious accidents with cyclists obviously not paying attention, but still, the delineator just gives you a little bit, because it's all blending. It looks like cement, and it is low level. It's not like the no-post barriers, which are quite high. So we do have delineators throughout the district. Liberty has them on some of their winding parts. Same with Esterns on Happy Valley Road. They're quite tall, but the ones I'm speaking of are only about 15 inches. They're two different heights. And you'll notice if you go up Happy Valley Road or Latoria, where there's new installation, it just gives you a bit of an attention at the end. So,
I'd appreciate seeing the brochure again. You must have sent it, and I must have missed it.
yeah, a long time ago, but they're all over the place now. So that was just the example. We have talked about this, not us, this council, but previous councils, about doing boulders and curbs and scissor fencing and all sorts of different things, and nobody's come to any particular agreement. The big concern with Public Works was snow plowing and that sort of thing, and they won't be right on the roads. They'll be off the road, but so all of those are, I shouldn't say off the road, but delineated enough that it wouldn't interfere. Councillor Gray, you had a comment.
Yeah, I'm not clear on what a barrier is versus a delineator. I'm not clear at all what we're talking about. Sorry to cause it.
So
But is it like a curb?
it looks like it, but they're in sections. They're about 3 feet long, and then they can be pieced together depending how long that you need them. I wouldn't suggest that we go the whole length, because we'd need people to get in, well, obviously in and out of driveways, but the delineator piece is what stands up on top of it. The ones we see on our curves are very flexible, and we're having a conversation with Mr. Gravel about those. Yeah.
Thank you. Then I'm back to basics here. What's the problem? So when I look at Happy Valley Road, where we're talking about, I guess cars park there, but I don't see them there. Now, maybe they park there on Machosen Day and on the garage sale day. If that's it, then I would have thought we would just call enforcement. We pay quite a bit of money to the police and have them take a few cars away, and that'll probably bring it close to that. Or is there some other, is it right? I'm not seeing cars there, except on the big parking days, and I think we could handle that without spending this money. So that's the first Happy Valley, and then I'll talk about the other one in a second.
So yeah, every time we have events, and for years it used to be the event organizer was supposed to put pylons out, and then it didn't happen. And so we filled in a ditch. It cost us over $45,000 to fill in the ditch, and we had to get special kinds of drainage, culverts and that sort of thing. And it was a perfect parking spot, and that was always the concern, that it would turn out to be parking, and therefore people could not traverse safely on foot, pushing strollers and cycling, that sort of. I have oodles of pictures showing how people park along those corridors, and it's not just what's happening at the community house or on the grounds or at the school or the community hall. It's everywhere. It's not like there's one master person doing an event plan to let everybody else know what's going on. So just to make it safer for everybody, and when we have people that come out to our events, to make it welcoming, and they find a place or they find out that they can't park in some of these places. So it's just to keep safe passage and not be so crowded, and considering the fact that this corridor in front of us here at Happy Valley is really an emergency corridor with our fire station right on it. So we want them to have good egress. Mr. Payat, you had a comment?
No, you said it all, and just the public concern is the half the block on the road, too far onto the road, when all the cars are parked on the side. And that's just the safety issue there.
Right, so we have no parking signs, and then, as I'm saying, probably much less expensive simply to enforce. Call the police and have them come and take the cars out. I mean, if the signs are there, then it's a no parking zone. And if it's only events, it's not a, it just, I see us spending this money. I'm curious about that. because if otherwise I don't see cars parking there.
I mean, it's a good point. Maybe we can, the fire chief's not available, she's on call, but it would be interesting to hear on an event day how a successful enforcement would be, you know, realistically. Like, it'd be good to hear comments about that.
Any other comments? Mayor Little.
Yeah, over the years, you've sent us multiple pictures of cars along that stretch on Happy Valley Road, as well as we've received complaints from community members, most recently in the last year, about the parking at the community hall. And just last weekend, there was almost chaos right at the intersection of Happy Valley, William Head, and Chosen Road, because there were multiple events going on and people are used to coming up from William Head Road quite fast through the intersection. And so it really is an unsafe spot. Even Mr. Starr this last week mentioned that people park in front of his place all the time, he said. And he said that it has been a problem, that intersection, for a long time. And I think he even said he had some engineered drawings and rationale for a three-way stop. So it is an ongoing problem. I'm surprised that Councillor Gray hasn't seen it, because you certainly sent some pictures and we've certainly received correspondence regarding that.
Councillor Gray.
Yeah, so now we're jumping over from the Happy Valley Road, which we've been talking about, over to William Head. So my comments were about the Happy Valley intersection there. So moving to the William Head Road, I think we should put up some no parking signs as a first step. Not so expensive, and make it clear to people that you're not supposed to park there. At the moment, it's quite okay to park there. There's no signs, nobody advising people not. The cars are parked outside the white line, and that's disrupting the path. And I see the problem. I just wondering about the solutions.
Councillor Shukin, can you remind me, in the past Parks and Trails Master Plan, and maybe the one that's coming forward, recommendation of, as much as we can, to separate some of our roadside trails with flora and fauna, as we see out in front of the neighbor's property here, that when we're investing in roadside trails, we're not investing in them to be parking. We're investing in them for foot, hoof, and wheel rolling, correct?
Yeah, correct. And Councillor Donaldson, you're asking me to dig into a memory that's a little shallow these days. I don't know the specific section, but you're totally right. And I think even in the BC Active Transportation Plan, ideally you will have a barrier between the road and the path that you're walking on, ideally. But one of the things in terms of the parking on Happy Valley that we've been able to do over the last few events is to pylon off that area, and at your request and direction. But previously, yeah, it was just a free-for-all with people parking there, and people are blind to no parking signs. And I actually believe in a situation, Chosen Day, or might even Chosen Garage Sale enforcement, is very impractical. And what will happen is a boot will be put on a car, and then you pay the ticket to get the boot off or something like that. I just believe that parking signs are not going to be effective. In the case of William Head Road, there is a serious safety issue there because of the narrow area, the narrow road. So we talked about this before, and I'm very supportive of making an investment in making that area safer. So.
Thank you. And we will see this again probably this weekend, because there's at least 4 events going on both days in the village. So it is a hub of activity. Okay, so Councillor Shukin. So
I would move that we approve Schedule L with the amount being up to $12,000.
And to include William Head Road.
And to include William Head Road. Thank you very much.
And seconded by Mayor Little. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Opposed by Councillor Gray. Okay, and Schedule M. This is to do with dog signage. This signage is to support the Animal Control Bylaw of 2023, number 692. The estimated cost is $10,000. The justification is to the continuation of signage installation in various parks and trails locations from the Dogs in the Chosen Working Group recommendations approved by Council January 24th, 2022. This request would follow through with the 2022 Council direction and the Dog Working Group. Their recommendations. The signage educates the public to keep dogs under control on municipal property, in parks, trails, and at beaches in order to reduce dog-related conflicts. This is a public safety and recreation priority. And the ongoing cost would be signage cleaning once per year as per our other signs, and replacement possibly in 10 years. This would come out of the general capital funding for 100%, and staff have provided us priority lists that when we met with staff, the Dog Working Group cited various areas of how we could prioritize these and not do all of this in 1 year. So the first priority being Weirs Beach, Taylor Beach, municipal grounds, which is the entrance to the parking area, and the field at the Machosen, the school field. Those would be the two places we would like to see 4 signs. This cost came from, I believe Public Works did the research for us and looked at the sign company that they deal with. I believe that we were also looking at other contracts of sign companies that do things like Saanich does possibly contracting out, but ultimately this was what staff found out for us, that it would be an estimate of $10,000. I believe we had this last year too, but we never implemented it, so we didn't spend money last year on this at all. We are getting consistent feedback from not only our staff, but residents and users of the fields of dog feces and dogs running out of control. We have had that with some of the beaches, but these particular beaches are the only 2 that we're focusing on right now that we actually have some jurisdiction over. And it is an educational component. Any comments? Anybody want to make a motion to approve or move forward with this?
I'm prepared to make a motion to approve this. One of the things that I would say is if you have a hope of enforcement on particularly egregious cases, signage is going to be important. Otherwise, no one is really fully aware of what the bylaw is unless you choose to read it. The one thing I have heard increasingly is the impact of commercial dog walkers. And there's a case that I've actually heard of and seen the signs of in the Laban area on the trail down to Matheson Lake, where there are commercial dog walkers and those dogs are running loose and having some impact on walkers as well. So again, I think signage is a critical aspect of enforcement. So,
and I would agree with you on that with the commercial. I think when we had the group together, we had explored commercial dog walkers, and the model to follow, or the one that we had discussed and learned about, was CRD has that as well, and the commercial dog walkers do understand what's involved with that. So if we could adopt something like that, and maybe they even have a display decal saying that's who they are so they don't get harassed, there would be a fee to using that. It's like a license to use. So those are important things too. Marilyn?
Yeah, I think this is important to sort of finish the loop from the Dogs in Chosen Working Group. All of the recommendations were adopted by previous council, and I think we should just close the loop. That Laban Road to Matheson Lake is particularly precarious because, as you can imagine, as you're going down, and it's quite a steep slope, when you have a pack of dogs running around, It's quite unnerving, and I think it's a safety issue there. So signage would be really welcome there.
Councillor Shukin.
Oh, and I should just mention that there are multiple, there's several trails down from Laban to Matheson Lake, and I'm talking about the first one, actually, not the other, the further one, but again, yeah, they're both prone, for sure, so.
When we met with staff on this, we also, I had suggested that we should from time to time consult with PTASC when you are upgrading things like signs and whatnot. And maybe helping us to identify the trails that are, because there are so many different openings to trails, the ones that would be more important over others, and whether or not this priority list matches, I don't know, but certainly your committee could probably give some feedback on that.
Thank you, that's a great point. It looks pretty good to me. I will bring it back to the next PTASC meeting if I could, though.
Yes, please.
Yeah, great. I'll make a motion to accept, or to approve Schedule M.
Okay, moved by Councillor Shukin, seconded by Mayor Little. Comment, Councillor?
Yeah, just wondering, is the $10,000 for the priority 1 locations or for all of the locations?
This week?
Through the chair. So that should cover hopefully all of this priority 1 locations, and then maybe get into priority 2. But this is, in order to cover all of those, we'll probably need 2, maybe 3 years of funding in total.
Councillor Gray.
And I just wondered, so we heard about the idea that the dogs, particularly the commercial dog walkers, running loose, and the idea that signs help enforcement. But a moment ago, we were talking about parking, and we're learning that signs don't affect drivers. But in this case, what would the signs say? Are they saying no leash required, or are they saying something about commercial walkers? Or are they saying something about feces collection? Or are they saying something about dogs under control? What's the message on the sign? Because I don't think we require leashes. So how will that change?
Yeah, so there would be messaging on some of those topics, and actually, if you like, I can ask Ms. Whitehouse to come and present to us on that.
No, we're approving the money, so I just wondered what was going to be written on the signs. But we don't need a presentation on it. I think the decision's about to be made.
I don't have the exact wording in front of me, but we will be addressing those situations.
And I'm recalling that when we went through the dogs and chosen working group, there were a number of examples of signs. And but I think the big one is an indication of dogs being under control. So
it is. Okay. So I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Opposed by Councillor Gray.
Councillor Johnson,
Yes.
wonder if, sorry to be immature, but I wonder if we could have a short recess. I know we're almost done. We seemingly are almost done,
That's the
but
last page.
we have the pinks. I
Oh,
think,
yes.
though.
We do.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. We're okay to have a break? Yes,
Just
5 minutes?
5 minutes.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Okay, welcome back to the second half of the show. Okay, so we will now address the pinks that we have. I thank Mr. Creek for addressing the correspondence that we have from Ms. Strauss and Ms. Bacon. And so we will go to page 13. It's in the agenda. This is a budget request for emergency livestock shelter for item 4A. It's a staff report for the current budget discussion for special projects. So the asset here is the emergency livestock shelter. The description is this request seeks municipal support and capital funding to construct a permanent roof structure over the 6 temporary livestock stalls to be installed on the Machosen Equestrian Society riding ring area. The structure is approximately 20 feet by 30 feet, engineered and compliant with ALR, ALC, and municipal building regulations. The estimated cost given to us here is $25,000 to $30,000. And the justification comments, Machosen currently has no designated emergency livestock sheltering capacity, despite repeated identification of this gap in the Municipal Emergency Support Services Planning, Local Emergency Response Plans, council discussions, and public emergency preparedness workshops, community hazard and evacuation planning. During wildfire, storm, power outage, or interface evacuation events, residents often must relocate horses and livestock with very limited local options. Benefit to the district or consequences of not funding: a local livestock staging and sheltering space increases community resilience during evacuations, reduces risk to residents attempting to self-evacuate livestock, supports coordination between fire department, ESS, and animal aid partners, aligns with provincial emergency management expectations for animal and disaster support. Additionally, the shelter supports broader community use, youth programming, paradressage, and equestrian events without introducing commercial activity or permanent boarding, fully compliant with ALR farm use. The current fallback, transporting animals to North Cowichan or North Saanich, is not timely, practical, or safe during emergent conditions and places additional strain on neighboring jurisdictions. Ongoing costs is estimated maintenance of $500 to $2,000 a year. Every 3 to 5 years would be $2,500. And this is suggested to come out of funding resources of the general capital, 100%. Some additional information: this project would only move forward if the Machosen Equestrian Society raised enough money to pay for the remainder of the asset, around $20,000. And this is not information that came to us by way of September 15th request from CFO. It's come to us tonight. There was some correspondence that we did get, I think, by email late November. And so here we are talking about this evening. We did get a PowerPoint presentation, I think, in May or June from a member of the Equestrian Club in this regard as well. Comments? Councillor Shukin.
So a quick question. In additional information, it says project will only move forward if the MES raised enough money to pay for the remainder of the asset. So I'm not sure whether that is the 25 to 30,000 plus the MES's contribution. Do we?
Through the chair, it's on top of that 30,000 that the district would pay, so like 50,000 in total.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, can I weigh in on this one? This one, I actually phoned the president today to have a talk, because I want to understand. I haven't been to one of their meetings in a while, and I wanted to have an understanding of what their priorities are, because I do know that they have this last year budgeted to enhance the grandstands, because there's dry rot and they need to fix some of the bleacher seats and the wing walls. And doing the wing walls will allow them to do some fire smarting as well. So as one of the members, I was able to find some quotes for them, and then they decided what they wanted to do with that. So they've already got some budget money aside for those projects. Water is definitely a priority. They've yet to budget for that. The initial estimate for that from the water board would be $10,000 just a meter up the road. So you have to come in underneath the road. And then there's another estimate that's being sought for plumbing that would come to, say, the riding ring so that they could irrigate their footing. And so I'm not sure if any of you are aware, but when they changed the footing from hog fuel, which is very hard to find these days, to sand, they needed to come to the district to have this discussion because it's the property of the district, and the maintenance changes when you have different footings. So sand requires, it's dusty, as we can see. Usually on Tuesdays, you'll see that from May to September when the drill team is practicing. It's not safe for them to have this kind of dust and silica that comes up. It's not good for the horses or the riders. But once upon a time, their lease included all of the works area behind the works building, and trees had to be taken down when the works yard needed more room for storage. And when those trees came down, there was an agreement to replace the trees. In the last term, during COVID, when I was the president, I suggested that the trees really aren't going to stop dust, etc. Perhaps water. So they've got a couple of different things that they're looking at. This is another one that has come up more recently. They're prepared to do fundraising. They, I think, probably need, and CAO could probably give some background on this. They probably do need engineering or building permit, that sort of stuff. So they also want to put a roof on it. When Mr. Payette had actually sent an email out to us earlier this year asking for input, I actually answered back with a plethora of questions. The questions I would have are, it's not just for horses, it is for livestock, for emergency. If we were to look at other facilities similar to our municipality, like Saanich has Saanich Fairgrounds. They have livestock buildings. All those buildings are behind fence and gates. We don't have that. So that would be something that from our liability insurance, I'd like to know a little bit more about. The equestrians would have to probably put a rider on their insurance as well when they've had to do that in the past, when they've had driving or queries about reining horses, that sort of stuff, because the liability changes with the activity. So those were some of the things that I was interested in learning more about. They're willing to give up the grassy area beside their grandstand for this placement. This is an area that has been traditionally used for picnics during farmers market, but also mulling station for Machosen Community Day. Anytime they've done fundraising for ride-a-thons, that's where they sort of have their little chili cook-off and gathering for that sort of stuff. So they're willing to give that up for this. These will be 6 different stalls. I have lots of other questions, but in speaking also to the farmers market, when they proposed to put their farmers market shelters in, they paid for the majority of that, was $67,000. And they did have to get engineering, and there were lots of different levels of things that they had to do. I don't think those shelters go anywhere. They're very deep in the ground with cement. So there were drawings that were required, probably cement piles and stuff. The same with the portico in front of the museum. And lots of layers of things that have to be done with stuff. I don't know if this has been done yet. I think what the equestrians are looking for is direction. This is something they want to do. They just want to know if they can do it, they'll start the fundraising. If not, what do they need to do and when? So they need a timeline as well. A lot of livestock owners in the area do not have the means to transport their animals. They usually contract that out, or they have a neighbor. So those are some things that even their club could start working on, approaching farms and doing some seminars and in service to other agricultural situations in the community. Yeah, there's many layers to this, but these are just some of the things in speaking with the two user groups that are adjacent to the. This has been brought up at the grounds group meeting as well. But the farmers market, the museum people, generally stuff like this, they would have to be a site visit with the grounds group too. So I'm just not sure where we are with staff, what requirements we've asked of them. Have we put anything into ALC for? I know what it says on paper, but I don't know if we have to apply to have another building. It's more than 10 by 10, so I suspect we do.
Yeah, thanks through the chair. This request came to us a number of months ago based on temporary facility, if you recall. And since then, it sounds more permanent now, obviously with a permanent roof. Originally, there wouldn't have been a requirement for building codes review, but the size and the permanent roof, that speaks to a building code to me with a permanent foundation. And so, yeah, the ALC, the indication is that would meet the regulations of the ALC, but we would do a review of that just to be sure. So that'll take a little bit of time. Regarding water, like as a priority, I agree. I had a conversation with the cricket club. They are also interested in irrigating the cricket pitch. There might be an avenue there of cost sharing, actually. That's kind of an interesting potential project that we can look at this year. We'll do some investigation. There was discussion about why they would use that patch of property. It does get used on Machosen Day. I mean, I was there. I was watching the kids, looking at the ponies and everything. That would be obviously not possible if they use that location. So, as we continue to grow and the core gets used for more and more events, it gets more cluttered and eventually we can't do everything for everybody. We can't possibly park cars and run events and build buildings on the same piece of property, right? So eventually, I would suggest we need to kind of gather and maybe do some strategic planning on the core area again and just see, how we're going to do all this in the next 5 years. It includes the school. The school's getting busier. Like, there's no doubt about it. The parking lot's full all day long now. So now we get to a point where we have to really think about not just this project, but overall how we're going to manage all the events and activities throughout the year and keep everybody happy. I don't know if it's going to be possible. Thanks.
Councillor Shukin?
Thank you for the insights into, your experience with the equestrians. And also you raise a good point about the growth of structure on the municipal grounds. And I do remember when the Museum Society wanted to do the portico that they've been talking about for many years, they did involve the larger grounds group as well. Mr. Payette's point about giving thought to how we use the larger municipal grounds, I think, is a really good one. And this will be an interesting weekend because of the events you're talking about and where everyone's going to park. And we're, having more rainfall right now, more is expected. So the fields would be very foolish to load up with cars at this point. I think it would be, in terms of this project, I don't want to shelve it, but I think it's one that we might have to wait for another year to move along with. And I think we've heard from the chief, if I'm recalling her comments, that, this is something that we might benefit from an emergency perspective. But I also think that there's probably other options, especially for horse owners. And in terms of other livestock, the one thing to keep in mind is we don't have a lot of cattle in Machosen. There's a lot of sheep, but I think housing them versus cattle is a very different thing. So I think it's a neat idea. It's probably not one that I could see us jumping into in the coming year. So.
Okay. Mayor Little?
Yeah, thank you. I think this is just a question of priorities. It'd be nice to have. I think it would need the perimeter fencing. But I could also see the farmers market group as well as the Old Bourne Museum people saying, hey, we paid for them for our portico and for our shelters ourselves. Can we be reimbursed now that you're paying for shelters for another group? And so I think this is nice to have. 6 stalls is not that much, though, given the amount of sheep and the number of horses that we have here. And I was trying to put myself in the position if there was a wildfire, if there was an earthquake. Well, we don't know what the roads will be like, but if there was a wildfire, would I hitch up my trailer to my truck and put my horse in there and bring it to Machosen, or would I try and get it farther away from a wooded area? I think I might try and get it out to North Saanich. I don't know, but I think if we had, again, a plethora of money, we could do these kinds of things, but we just are not in that financial position.
Councillor Gray, any comments?
Yeah, I share the concerns of that the mayor has expressed and Councillor Shukin. I'm also struck that some time back when I was involved with the hall, I went to some of the emergency meetings that the fire chief put on, and there was discussion at those meetings about the livestock, and I seem to recall it was trailers that were needed to actually move the animals. So I'm not in favor of proceeding this at the moment. I guess I'd be curious to hear more about what does the entire emergency plan look like, and if we're missing the trailer part of it, then maybe the building part isn't. We're not ready for that just yet. And so, what's the big plan? What does it look like? And the kind of things that the mayor just said. You want to get your animals as far away from the problem as possible. So. I'm with the others who've already spoken.
Yeah, so they, in their presentation, I recall they have acquired these panels from Thunderbird, and they got a pretty good deal on them. Right now, they're secured to their building there until such time that they get permission to do something with them. And so one of the things that I had thought is, well, that's great because they're somewhat temporary, portable, so they could put them inside the riding ring and they're not going to tip over in any time. Then you have your perimeter fence, not good for sheep because they'll get underneath, but you can still put a hot wire around that. Even if there's no electricity, you can still put a hot wire around. There are means to do that. And then there were other risk management situations or an operational plan. Who's going to mind the animals? Who's going to be on site? Because these are liabilities. I don't know if our insurance covers that. If there's a caretaker, food, is there availability to water and those sorts of things. So I think a risk management operational plan is helpful, and perhaps they could set these up in an emergency situation inside the ring or the back ring. It's a little bit more reclusive back there, or away from too much interference with other people. Yeah, there are lots of different things, and so I don't think they're going to be totally at a loss to be able to not use those. We've had long before I got involved, there were great big events that local equestrians put on. People from all over came, and you always stayed with your horse. That's where you got the hitching rails, you got your trailers, and actually Mayor Little and well, all of us would probably remember at the beginning of this term, but we had meetings with equestrians and the museum with the trajectory of parking trailers and not mixing horse people with non-horse people, and so keeping that area secluded and careful. And we ran into a serious situation, I believe, a chosen community day when they decided to put a show on and didn't have enough parking. And anyways, we managed to get people in where they needed to be, but it was very, very unsafe in some situations. They need more parking if they're going to do a show on a community day. Usually we do demonstrations and that sort of stuff. But anyways, so there was some debriefing done on that. I think I sent my notes off to somebody. I'm not sure where it's all fit, but it is a small piece of property, really. So we need to, I think they're looking for an answer and some direction from us. So I think we need to, with, all due respect, give them something back and keep working with them and see where we can go with that. I like the idea that they're thinking about the emergency aspect of the livestock in our community. I do know some farmers that probably just open the gate and let things happen, and others would head for the hills should they have things like trailers or whatever. Okay, so so this one we will.
I think Mr. Pyatt has something to add.
Yes, Mr. Pyatt.
I'm just wondering on this, through the chair and the committee, like if this isn't going to get approved, like why beat it up for another year? Kind of thought process. Maybe another way of tackling it to get some kind of decision process going is to have a look at the whole area and start to kind of plan and decide, from a planning perspective, where we're going in the next 5 to 10 years. Help council, give this committee and then help council with these kinds of decisions. Otherwise, we're going to kick things down another year and another year. It takes up a lot of staff time. So I'm just saying, like, why don't we get a sort of an understanding of the bigger picture and then help make decisions? It won't be just this decision. It'll be soon. We're going to be dealing with parking. We're going to be dealing with the sports field. And we're going to be so maybe a visionary process for the whole space might help.
I agree with you. I think the timing is now, because how we move on these properties is a lot different than what we have done in the past decade. Similarly, how we're using our roads is a lot different. So more and more people, we got discovered in COVID, and more people are coming, and we have these great events, and they leave and they traverse, and we want everybody to be safe and feel welcome, including people that live here with each other and with their creatures. Councilor Shinton.
I fully agree with Mr. Pyatt. The big question that we have, though, is what is going to happen with the fire hall? And I think if we move on one direction or another, that's really going to influence the shape and how we use the municipal field. So as much as I'd like to, totally jump into that process, it might be a little soon. So, but I definitely think it is something that needs to happen, and that I think you're right. That is the answer in terms of these one-off projects that come our way. And
and just to continue the valuable discussion here is, in 3 years, the temporary use permit of the school is done, and we'll have tenants in the school. We need to think about this before in the next 3 years, or otherwise we're going to hit a wall on this situation. And so in that visioning, we can discuss items such as the school and its current zoning and maybe other facilities, just so that we're planning way ahead of time and we're not waiting to the last minute and then we're scrambling to figure things out.
Okay, so So will staff be reporting back to them on what we discussed tonight briefly? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, so anything else on this particular topic? No. Okay, so open up the mic for the public. Yes. Yes.
Can I just ask Mr. Creek and Mr. Payette a question? There was some previous discussion about, through you, Councillor Donaldson, there's previous discussion about, again, the buffer land. And I think there was a request made, whether it went anywhere or not, I'm not sure, for an allocation of, I think it was 25,000 to move ahead with, to have some money available for us for planning and possibly action on the buffer land in 2025. Has that been factored into anything? Now, I raise that in light of, there'll be a discussion on Monday where we may look at the development of a covenant, the potential of rezoning. So there's some legal costs there. We've talked about developing either an access plan or a management plan. So that will potentially require some funding. It might not all happen in 2026, but we should be very prepared to move ahead on some of these things, like at least get them started. So.
Hello.
and sorry, just to finish off, it might be a good bet to just keep this money in a reserve or draw from it from a reserve, because I'm not sure what we're going to do. But,
Yeah, okay, that through the chair, that would be, yeah, so leading in is the presentation coming next week, that's part of the funding, to pay for the planner's work for the presentation, the report's coming, and it lays out a plan for the future use of the land. And then following that, the $25,000, what's left of the $25,000, which is quite a bit, we could put in a reserve or into an account in anticipation of future costs to keep the momentum moving on the buffer land.
And we may even have a reserve that we can draw on now, like the well, I'm not sure what it would be, but there may be something there that's applicable.
Through the chair, Councillor Gray just showed me the meeting or the agenda from, I believe it was the second operational budget meeting. And then, so in the first one, you had requested that we get $25,000 from the Growing Community Fund to pay for that buffer land. Didn't have a motion from council to approve of that. If you wanted to do that right now, I could certainly book that into the budget. So when I come back in January with first estimated tax increase, once I get the assessment information, they can be included in there. But right now it was a topic that was discussed, but nothing was motioned at the table.
Well, if I could, I would move that we allocate $25,000 from the Growing Communities Fund to address the range of needs that may come from our consideration on the future of the buffer land.
Seconded by Mayor Little. Any other conversation? Councillor Gray?
So I'm just not sure about the money. I think the CEO just said we had maybe $20,000 available already, something like that. So if we have that money available, I don't see why we would need to vote new money. But if we get that clear, that would help me know how to vote.
Yeah, we'll have to clear this up. I thought there was money available from last year to start looking at the management plan for the buffer land. So maybe I'm mistaken.
Through the chair, I think you're mistaken with the $20,000 that we had for the Parks and Trail Master Plan, and then the $20,000 that we had for the Duke Road East. Okay. And then we did have, okay, so correcting on that one, we did have $20,000 for the buffer land back in 2024, and we didn't use much or any of it. But then that money has now been allocated to paying for a hydrologist for the water monitoring over on the buffer land. So because of that, that money's been budgeted for already. So I think on the safer side, I would think you would need this extra 25,000, unless that monitoring doesn't cost what we budgeted for in the current 5-year plan.
I'll withdraw my motion and we'll pick it up when, if you have more information. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so if there's anyone in the audience that wishes to make comment on what we've discussed this afternoon, please step forward to the mic. State your name and the street on which you live. Push the button until the red light comes on, please.
Gary Lamb, Hackmore Drive. Just a question with all of these enforcements that we're looking at now, parking, dog walking, how is that going to be enforced? Question, just how is that going to be enforced? That is going to take some thinking. The other point is around the EOC and the cricket building. I've spent quite a bit of time around the EOC and the community house and such, but particularly EOC, and the other day I walked up by the cricket house as well. We're going to spend $30,000 on repairing the roof for the EOC. Have we considered doing any maintenance or such on painting for those buildings as well? Because the west side of the EOC and even on the east side, the paint's peeling off and the wood is starting to absorb moisture. So we don't do something about it, and relatively soon you're going to likely have some major structural repairs that you're going to have to deal with. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Lilly?
Regarding enforcement, we would use CRD bylaw, and it would be, as usual, a complaint-driven process.
Councilor Schick.
One more aspect on this. I think in terms of making enforcement work, there is an awareness component. In the case of, and I'm not meaning to dump on commercial dog walkers, and there's some really good ones out there, but those folks tend to be on a regular schedule. And so if there is a problem, which again I'm aware of in kind of along some of the trails to Matheson, you can alert CRD. Neighbors can also have eyes and ears, and that possibly has the potential of having more effective enforcement. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Tamara Ballard, Mitchell's resident. I was just looking back about your dog signs. I have a picture from December 8th, 2023, the receptacle and the signs that were installed at Weir's Beach. Do we still have those? Are they still up? It's only 2 years ago, so they're pretty simple. Please pick up after your dog. I think you need any more education than that. So it was budgeted for $12,000. I have that here too. For the signs, the receptacles, and 3 times a week pickup for those. And it turned out that was astronomical for the pickup and the disposal. So I guess my question is exactly that. Do we still have those signs? Are they out? And could you maybe use those instead of spending another $10,000 on signage?
As far as I know, we do still have those signs, and those signs could be repurposed in certain areas. The signs we're talking about are quite a lot larger. Don't know the exact size, about 2 by 3 feet, very similar to what we see on the etiquette sign sitting in the equestrian riding ring. Originally, they were going to be much bigger, and the price was higher, and I don't think we need anything door size. So we do have a sign bylaw as far as size goes too, but repurposing the signs, yes. The receptacles, no. We may still have them, but not likely will be.
No, I wasn't suggesting receptacles because the price for dumping it is astronomical, right? So,
Yes.
but there's no, I don't see it, unless the signs are still out, of course, down on the beach, because it,
Thank you. Okay, so that's it for today's meeting, and so I would ask for motion to adjourn. Motion by Councillor Shukin, second by Mayor Little. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much.